KidMissing TV. Today we're going to talk about cases from Canada, our neighbors to the not so far north from us. Before we do, I'd like to start out with a little warning for parents here in the Blackstone Valley. A man, described as having gray hair and being in his 60s, and in at least one instance possibly having a female in the vehicle with him, has been lurking around our children, possibly trying to lure them in several valley towns, including Uxbridge, Upton, Sutton, Northbridge, Mendon, Hopkinton, and most recently in Blackstone twice. The police asked if you have any information about this man or his car, a sedan or Impala, again gray in color. Excuse me. To please call any one of the police departments involved in the case. The phone numbers are Uxbridge 508-278-7755, Upton 508-529-3200, Sutton 508-865-8747, Northbridge 508-234-6211, Mendon 508-478-2737. I don't have the phone numbers for the other two departments, as these, Hopkinton and Blackstone, as these just came out just before I went to air, so I didn't have time to get them. What I'd like to do, though, Facebook, Twitter, and I've already done it on mine, is I've created a hashtag. I got it from one of our other cases, and we'll talk about that when we get there. Hashtag Blackstone Valley Creeper. He's creeping around the valley. This helps organize all posts about this particular subject and these particular incidences, so that if someone clicks on that hashtag, any post that's made about these incidences using this hashtag will all come up together. And that was the goal in the case that we'll talk about after as well. An update. Basil and Jamal Abdul Farouk, as you remember, were taken from Virginia. Before I get to the update, I'd like to show you a clip from the show. Jamal Abdul Farouk and his brother Basil Abdul Farouk disappeared on April 16th, 1990, also from Richmond, Virginia. 3 days later, on April 19th, the body of Basil Abdul Farouk, age 8, was located in a local landfill. Basil had been murdered. Jamal is still missing. The two boys routinely walked to school on their own, as their mother worked nights and slept during the day. And they went out to play. And their mother didn't think anything of them going out to play. When they discovered Basil, they found that his mouth had been gagged and his body had been bound with duct tape. He had been stabbed twice in the back and his skull was fractured. What a horrible death for any person, but an 8-year-old child? What can an 8-year-old child do to make you do such horrible violence to them? The autopsy concluded the stab wounds killed Basil, and that the skull fracture actually happened after his death, mercifully. They still do not know who took the children or who killed Basil. And they can't figure out which dumpster Basil had been dumped in to start with, because they've got 90 dumpsters that were dumped in that area of the landfill that day. Both parents were cleared. They've been extremely cooperative. They didn't have DNA testing back then, so they are looking at the duct tape to determine whether they can get the suspect's DNA from the duct tape. Now, duct tape that was found around the body of Basil has now yielded DNA from his killer. It actually was tested in 2010, but this information wasn't released right away, obviously. Also, at that time, new tips indicate that Jamal may in fact still be alive. Tips recently acquired by America's Most Wanted. Cedrica Provencher. She disappeared from Troy Rivieres, or Three Rivers, Quebec, Canada, on July 31st, 2007. She was 9 years old. She was last seen being asked by an adult male to help him find a dog. That's always scary, a black and white dog. The investigation still has not progressed, despite the fact that there is a reward in this case that is absolutely astronomical. I have never heard of seen a reward this big. Get ready for it. $170,000. That's 170,000. That's insane. Another little girl who was 10 years old at the time, Cedrica was 9, was also approached by this man, and he went so far as to offer like $100, and her father came up and said, no, go away. Cedrica, as I mentioned, still has not been found. Almost no evidence has been found in this case. And unfortunately, I don't have a ton of information on this case because much of the reports were written in French. And as much as my grandmother is rolling over in her grave because I do not speak or read French, that can't be helped. I was able to retrieve one article that was written in French into English. It was about a wonderful lady and her little girl who went and put posters everywhere, and they worked really hard for a really long time. And she taught her daughter something valuable, I think, in doing that. If you have any information in Cedrica's case, you can call the Sûreté du Québec. That means the National Police of Quebec, 1-800-659-4264. And understand, they will speak English. They prefer to speak French in Quebec, but they can and will speak English if your tip is in English. Edna Betty Jean Masters. She's called Betty Jean by her family. She went missing from Red Lake, British Columbia on July 3rd, 1960. Edna Betty Jean, or Betty Jean, was 21 months old. The Mounties, that's short for Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or RCMP, are re-examining this case. They think that, based on her age and lack of evidence to the contrary, that Betty Jean may very well still be alive. They are digitally aging her pictures, which I don't think they've released an age progression for Betty Jean yet. Not that I found, at least. They also are doing DNA examinations of her family. And the police really think, as I said, based on her age, that she may very well be alive, which is wonderful. Most of her family is gone. One of the only leads was the sighting of an unfamiliar 1959 Chevrolet car with Alberta plates. Alberta is 2 provinces over. That was seen nearby with a man and a woman in their late 20s in the vehicle. The car had either cat eye or bat wing taillights. According to my father, if the car was a 1959, it's more likely to have bat wing taillights in a 59 Chevy, which I will show you a picture of. Because that's what the 59s had. I knew I could ask him. At his age, he'd know exactly, and he didn't hesitate. So thanks, Dad. If you have any information, you can call the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Detachment at Kamloops, British Columbia, 250-314-1800. Adrian McNaughton disappeared from Holmes Lake, Ontario, at age 5 on June 12, 1972. The Renfrew, Ontario Provincial Police Barracks is investigating, and they have released an age progression of him after 37 years. He was on a family trip when he disappeared. He was from Arnprior, Ontario, and visiting Holmes Lake. Today he would be in his mid-40s. The provincial police constable, Janice Sawbridge, said there wasn't anything meaningful or a big lead that caused them to put out the sketch. They just wanted to get it out. He is Renfrew, Ontario Provincial Police Barracks' only missing persons case, which is amazing. And the investigator, Janice Sawbridge, has said this case will remain open until they solve it. Here's a cash reward of $2,000 for information leading to the arrest or charges against the kidnapper or kidnappers. Adrian has a 1 to 2 inch scar on his forehead. It should be noted that a scar on a child will change as they grow. So what was a 1 to 2 inch scar at age 5 might be minuscule to nothing now. So that's something to keep in mind. I know this from my own body. I had my hip fixed and I had a big long scar. I remember my scar, and as I grew it disappeared completely in my case. So it depends on where on the body it is, how old the child was, but they do change. And also at the time, OPP tracking dogs Buck and Saber joined the search. But they were unsuccessful. 550 registered civilians and 250 soldiers were combing an area of 74.8 square miles around the campsite. That is, some parts of the area have been searched 12 times. I think they did their Ned level best, and I don't think he's there. I think somebody took him. If you have any information in this case, please call the Ontario Provincial Police Missing Persons and Unidentified Bodies Remains Unit at 1-877-934-6363 or 1-877-9-FIND-ME, if that's easier to remember. Nicole Louise Morin disappeared from Etobicoke, Ontario. It's a part of Toronto. She was 8 years old, July 30th, 1985. She left her mother's penthouse in the West Mall. Big building, all sorts of things in it. To go downstairs to meet a friend to go swimming in the building's swimming pool. Her friend called. She said, "Yeah, I'll be right down." Then her friend called back up on the intercom system, and her mother said, no, she just left. She never arrived. She had to be somewhere in that building. The police have made a 1-minute video of what they think happened. And if I can get permission, I would love to air it on my show on a future episode. And if I am able to contact someone and get their permission, I will do that for you. Because it's very well made. Again, it's only a minute long. The Toronto Police Department has also started the Facebook and Twitter hashtag Find Nicole. You use this hashtag by #, Find Nicole, all together, no spaces, and then a space, and you type in whatever you know, or whatever you've heard, or whatever. And that way, they just click on the hashtag, and they get everybody's posts on the case, which is why I started a hashtag on our own situation that's going on. So, more than 15,000 man-hours was spent looking for Nicole, and a 20-member task force was created. Hers was one of several cases, unfortunately, in a short window of time. Christine Jessup, age 9, went missing from her Queensville home the October before Nicole vanished. Sharon Morningstar Keenan, also 9, was snatched away in January of 1983. Allison Parrott disappeared July of 1986. All turned up dead, their bodies found, all except for Nicole. If you have any information about Nicole, again, you can use the hashtag Find Nicole, or you can call the Toronto Police Service, 416-808-2200, or Toronto Crime Stoppers, 416-222-TIPS. That's 416-222-8477. Larry Leroy Nelson disappeared from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. He was 3 years old. It was December 23rd, 1957. He had a distinguishing mark. The tip of his middle finger on his left hand was taken off, and so was the nail. This happened when he got caught in a wringer washing machine. Most of us who are over 40 years old know what a wringer washing machine is, or was. It's a washing machine with 2 rollers, go like this, and if you get your hand caught in between, bad things happen. I was warned about this as a child when my family had our own wringer washing machine. My arm would get crushed. I didn't touch it. He did. Kids are curious. That happens. If a nail grew, it would not be a normal nail. Even as he grew, it would change. The part of his finger was gone. So it's not like the other scar that we talked about. People thought he fell through the ice of the Bow River. In fact, police were absolutely convinced of this fact, except that he was terrified of water. And he was 3 years old. Allegedly, him and his friends were out playing, and one of them threw a hockey puck. Okay. Over a 6-foot embankment onto the ice, and then they proceeded to climb said 6-foot embankment out onto the ice. That is nuts. Does that make sense to anybody within the sound of my voice? Because it certainly doesn't to this girl. And he was so afraid of water, as a matter of fact, that he would go over a bridge on the train with his mother and flip out. That's how afraid he was. His father had tried to take him at one time before this, so they wondered, did his father, Edward Sawchuck, take him? He loved his son very much. He did not take him. In fact, he was so bereaved by this whole thing that he took his own life on June 24th, 1975, in the Saskatchewan River in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, the next province over from Alberta. And Larry has never been found. Larry's family's hopes were dashed once when a man came forward who thought he might be Larry. DNA proved that he was not. And maddeningly, when someone did some research with the Calgary Police Department, someone said, well, if you had called about a year ago, you could have gotten the case file, but the case file's been thrown away because we think he drowned. Thrown away. This is a missing 3-year-old child. This is a major metropolitan police department. This isn't Mayberry RFD here, folks. This is Calgary, Alberta. The second largest, if not the largest, city in Alberta. It's maddening to me that they threw it away. So the only people looking for Larry now are his family. So I don't have a phone number or any contact information for police because, quite frankly, they no longer care about this case. They threw it away. Soapbox done. Richard Marlowe, another one missing from Etobicoke. And it looks like Etobicoke, but the K is silent. He went missing July 18, 1944. He was 9 years old. However, most folks think he may still be alive, 80 or so years old. His father was in the military at the time, and he was stationed in a different area of the country. He was able to come home to help with the search. His sister was 18 at the time that he disappeared, and in fact is still alive. She was 88 years old at the time of the article that I read. Her daughter is helping her to search for her brother. They even wrote to the FBI here in the United States. They wrote to newspapers. Their mother, actually, their parents, bought Christmas presents, birthday presents. Constable Kevin Baddington, now retired, finally helped get Richard listed in the OPP's missing persons database and connected the sister to missingkids.ca, an online resource center operated by the Canadian Center for Child Protection. It's kind of like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And he also was put on billing envelopes and mailed across the country. So his case really got a boost some years ago. Unfortunately, no leads have come of that. She has celebrated Richard's birthday every year, including the year of this article, which I think was this year. He'd be 88 years old. 80 years old. 88, right. That's funny. As a matter of fact, the only clue that was left behind when he disappeared was his sister's bicycle that got left in the yard when he was snatched. They even had an army militia looking for this little boy. Nothing. I'm just glad the police are taking it seriously today, even 71 years later. That's wonderful, because you do never know. If you have any information in the case of Richard Marlowe, you can call the Toronto Police Service at 1-877-934-6363. This case was called The Babes in the Woods. 2 unidentified brothers were found in Stanley Park, Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. On January 14th, 1953, they ranged in age between 6 and 10 years. They were murdered between 1947 and 1949, approximately. It was originally thought that they were a boy and a girl, potentially brother and sister. But in 1998, DNA testing was done, and it was found that they were both boys, and they were brothers. There are two interesting leads in this case. The first lead, a man and a woman were seen with two little boys wearing the things found at the scene. Two leather aviator helmets, one with goggles and one without. And the boys also had a lather's hatchet. Now, that's a small hatchet. It has a hammer end on one end and a cutting end on the other end. And it's used to put up lath and plaster. Lath are thin, narrow strips of wood that they put up with that hatchet, and they put plaster over it, and that's how houses were built back in that period. And that's what they had, and the boy was seen tinging it on the guardrail as they walked. The next time this couple was seen, they were alone. The woman was missing a shoe. There was a woman's shoe found at the scene, and she no longer had on the fur coat she was described to have had on to start with, which was found over the top of the bodies, the bones, when they were found. And she was disheveled. They had blood on them. But because they thought it was a boy and a girl, they never followed to sleep. So there was also another lead. Now, I don't know if it was the same woman or not, seen with two children that again matched the description, the aviator helmets and the whole business, of the two boys, who was picked up by a trucker hitchhiking, and she said she had been picked up for what the trucker thought she said, vagrancy. Most, however, in law enforcement think she said vague, C. Vague, V-A-G, and the letter C. And what that meant back then in the criminal code was prostitution. That's no longer the criminal code for prostitution, but it was at the time in Vancouver. So she was another possible lead. Again, not looked into too hard because she had two little boys, and again, they thought it was a boy and a girl. Police today have, as you can see in the pictures, a setup at the Vancouver Police Museum. Understand that what you're seeing are not the real bones. These are casts. The bones have been reinterred. The goal of the police at this point is to give these little boys their names. They know they're not going to prosecute anybody at this point because chances are better than even that the killer or killers are dead. And in my beliefs, and not in everybody's, but in my beliefs, they had to stand before the Lord and say, yeah, I killed two innocent children with a hatchet. I wouldn't want to have to stand before my God and say that. But somebody did. Like, again, in my beliefs, maybe not in yours. If you have any information regarding this case to help the Vancouver police in their goal of giving these little boys their names back, you can call 604, the Vancouver Police Department, at 604-717-3321. I want to give you a quick programming note. On the next show, we will be talking about missing boys. Missing boys are not they don't get as much attention as missing girls do. You know, if you're a blonde, blue-eyed girl, you're going to get all the attention in the world, and not necessarily if you're a boy or if you're, the wrong color or, in someone's opinion or whatever the case may be. So I try to present cases that might not otherwise get enough attention. And I will be including a new segment called Blast from the Past. This segment will be similar to our our special feature cases in that it'll be old cases, some unsolved but some solved, that have some sort of historical significance. Next time, we'll be talking about the case of little Charlie Ross. He was the first child ever in the United States abducted for ransom. This was back in the 1800s. Nobody expects to solve this case. He is who the Charlie Project was named for. But it is historically significant. I have a ton of those type of cases that are historically significant and are either solved or not solvable, that I think people will find interesting. At least I hope you do. That's why I want to share them with you. Because we can entertain and educate and get these posters out all at the same time. Thank you for joining me for another episode of KidMissing TV. Hopefully they keep getting better and better. That's my goal. Have a wonderful evening, a wonderful rest of your week. I will see you in another month or so. God bless you, and thank you.